we have now got a choice to make. Do we have a system in this country where we can uphold the freedom of the press? And I've never at any stage during the course of my political career done anything other than champion the right of the press to expose wrongdoing where they find it and to speak truth to power, which is what a free press ought to and is in a position, in my view, by the law to be able to do. But there are some serious questions that the press have now got to answer, and there are some serious considerations that we've got to have about the protection of individual members of the public in this country, not politicians, the protection of defenceless citizens who at moments of greatest grief, their private lives and their private feelings and their private tears are intruded upon by huge overbearing news organisations. It is right now that we take action to deal with these problems.
Is it also a time to focus on the relationship between our politicians, our democratically elected politicians, and the senior executives at newspapers, especially News International?
Well,
I've heard stories, for example, that Rupert Murdoch turned up at Chequers whilst you were there, uninvited, trying to see you, trying to get a conversation with you.
Not true.
I've heard a story that whilst you and your wife were up in Scotland attending a funeral for oil rig workers who died in a tragic accident, that a text was sent from Rebecca Brooks suggesting that you may want to get rid of one of your junior defence ministers.
I think the record will show that some people at News International abuse their power. There's no doubt about that.
Is that true, that last one?
I don't want to get into individual instances that affect what was said to Sarah, my wife. It's up to her to say
but is it
that
true?
needs to be said. I leave it up to her to say anything about these texts that relate to her. The issue for me, and the issue we've got to focus on.
But did that take place, Mr. Brown, if you could just answer that question?
I am talking about something here, or you're asking about something that affects Sarah, not me directly.
So she did receive a text from Rebecca Brooks?
Sarah would have to answer for this herself, because basically it's about information between two people that was communicated by text, if your story is accurate. But it's not for me to answer about something that happened there.
So News International were putting pressure on you. They were effectively trying to influence policy. Is that correct?
I think there's absolutely no doubt that News International were trying to influence policy. Their editorials show that they're publicly wanting to influence policy. Of course, they choose all channels to try to do this. This is an issue, and it will become an issue, about the abuse of political power as well as the abuse of civil liberties. And I think people will look askance at a British system of government where we pride ourselves in the democracy of our country, in the civil liberties that we guarantee for every individual citizen, in the transparency of our political system, and yet at the same time there are these influences working in our political system that have got to be brought under democratic scrutiny.